welcome back to Placemaking Week Europe. My name is Kristen, and I have the pleasure of sitting next to TJ on our Good Place bench. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, very comfortable.
Yeah, great. That's the first check.
Yeah, this place rocks.
Love the puns.
There we go.
And we're here at Placemaking Week Europe, as I mentioned. And I'm curious, first of all, TJ, for you to introduce yourself to those that are listening and watching. And what are you most excited about from this week ahead?
Okay, my name is TJ Maguire. I'm coming to you from Shabuktuk in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. It's the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, first and foremost. Always like to start with that as a recognition. And I, background and grew up in the area and really interested in urban planning and design from high school, and got into planning and design, and started working professionally as a consultant in the planning field. And then I happened to go to a training by Project for Public Spaces through Kathy Madden, who's now like a hero of mine. Anyway, she had totally changed my perspective on designing with community and people and not for. So opened my eyes to how that's possible and how it could be done. Things can be done a little better by listening to people. And anyway, I've grew up as a strong listener, so I don't know. I was like, this is my superpower. Started listening to people, so been very focused on that for the last 20 years now, since I did that course. And following the placemaking field, I've been able to travel the world to events like this. Very grateful to be here in Italy at Placemaking Europe, and it's a beautiful. Is it town or city, Reggio? It's beautiful. 150,000 people. I guess it's a city. And my work now, so I've worked in professional, consulting with government on waterfront development in Halifax. That was my playground for 10 years with an amazing team, operations team and planning team on the waterfront. And a couple years ago, 2 years ago, actually, to this day, almost, I accepted a job with Evergreen Canada, the biggest sustainability nonprofit in Canada, and I get to work on the planning and development team there as their senior urban designer. So I bring the puns often and try to keep things light and fun. That's sort of what my focus is. I think, there's a lot of tough conversations that are happening right behind us about the reality of the world, but I think it's important to listen to those, but we can also, take action in fun ways and make the world a better place as we go forward. And then what am I most excited for? There's so many great speakers here. Very, like Frederick and Ayanda, we're just on listening to them. Looking forward to Mary Kerrigan later in the week, listening to her story from Derry. I'm not speaking this year, so get to soak it all in, I guess. Yeah, and the pizza's fantastic. Had some last night, I think.
Nice. I'm excited. I haven't had my slice of pizza yet, but it's coming soon. And you mentioned you have the privilege to go to all these different events, and you're also organizing a lot of placemaking events, right? So there was the Global Placemaking Summit, which was held in Toronto in June, and you just had the Artist City Building Conference in Halifax, right?
Yeah.
And now you're here at Placemaking Europe, so we're making the rounds, right? I'm happy that I managed to get to 2 out of the 3.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, what kind of crossovers and differences do you notice in these conversations? Maybe if you compare what's happening here in Europe to North America?
Yeah. Well, I'll start in Canada, I guess, with the Global Summit, because that was in June. Last year, we had a conversation here about where should the next Global Summit be. And I just sort of said, well, why don't we try Canada? See if we could do it there. And Marcelo Sabesis was also here from Toronto, and he was like, yeah, let's do it, and let's have a conversation. So had many conversations through the fall and winter, and an incredible group of local Torontonians. It was very I don't know, bootstrapped, hacking it, bringing it together because we really didn't have much budget. It was a short time frame, but I think in the end we learned a lot through that process, and made a lot of great connections in the city of Toronto and Canada. And there was 100 international folks that came, so I think it was definitely like worthwhile doing. I The summit was much more of a mix of local and international versus here is like mostly international. I'm going to guess like 85% international people here, whereas the summit was like 50-50. Um, the From the feedback, some of the best things that people liked about the summit were local tours, like food tours or boat tours, or like hosted by locals. So people got a really authentic experience of the city that way. We also had many different venues. Every day was a different location. So it can be challenging. Like it's always like today, kind of tough to find the location or the entrance. So as an event organizer, it's like, how do you make that more smooth and focus on accessibility and things like that. So my work, Evergreen Brickworks, it's an old brick factory. So I'm very excited to walk around
Similar vibe.
this factory, to see how they're doing it here and what I can learn and bring back to my team. So, and then Artist City building progressing was in Halifax. This was the 9th year. So next year is the 10th year. So please come to Halifax next year.
All right.
Yeah, we're gonna. Yeah, it'll be a big one. It'll be a fun one. We did 2 days this year for the first time. So we did it in Halifax and Dartmouth, which is across the harbor. It was a really good. The first day was mostly like it was at our central library, and the second day was in and around downtown Dartmouth. So really cool to get local experiences and tours. Got to do a tour of downtown Dartmouth, looking at streetscapes with Mike Lydon, and like a lot of the university students were there. We're really excited about that. So I think the purpose of Artist City building is similar to here. It's merging local voices with international perspectives, learning from each other. There's local experts and there's international experts, and just getting people together, having conversations, and trying to inspire each other to do a little better, I guess. That's the main purpose of it, and also just to we're so focused on doing things in our cities and like trying to make something happen, and those opportunities are just like get your head out of the sand, meet people that you maybe haven't met yet in the city, and maybe make new connections and maybe shift your thinking a bit. So that's the Artist City building, the focus. And I think I was lucky enough. It was like 2017, I think 2016. Just applied to be able to come to the Future of Places conference in Stockholm, and that was my main introduction to this sort of the European movement. And my application got accepted, and I figured out how to fundraise to come, and work supported me luckily with flights. And anyway, it was very lucky to be able to go and meet people from all over the world, and you gain all these amazing connections. If you want an excuse to travel, it's you get to go to these wild places all over the world, and I think that's the biggest thing for me is like just all the amazing connections you make and learning from people that are trying to do similar things but in totally different contexts. Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah, I also really get that vibe being here at Placemaking Week Europe. People with all the different topics that we have. Like, the program is jam packed.
Yeah.
It's so cool to gain all these international insights, and you can relate at least part of it to a project that you're potentially working on or so on.
Yes. Yeah.
And hey, so you put on your event planner hat for the conferences,
Yeah.
summits. You put on your like the punny hat, right? The punny hat. Let's put it that
Yes.
way. And
I do have many hats. Yes.
what about the urban planner hat? Let's talk about that side of things.
Okay. Yes.
Because when we're talking about public spaces and what makes a great public space, can you maybe share with our listeners and watchers what are the no questions asked elements of a great public space?
Okay. I'll start with Kathy Madden. So it's so important to talk to people who are going to use the space or using the space or like understanding how places exist, what the history is, what the storytelling is. That's why it's so important to connect with Indigenous communities and knowledge keepers. Listen to them, listen to the youth, uh, and people that are sort of you know not typically part of the conversations of reshaping places. So like often it's engineering departments or architects that have the privilege of doing it. So it's really being intentional about reaching out and connecting with people, and understanding the powers that are at play and those dynamics. But then I think once you start making those connections and building those relationships, you can start having fun with it. Like have bring people together over food and start talking about the place and asking them how it could be better for them. Um, you know, and yeah, make it start just having community make invitations and starting dialogue, and you can overcome so much with that. Like budget, everybody says budget's the challenge. It's not the challenge. It's the energy and the community and how do you bring people together. People are very resourceful. I think from my background, like the Project for Public Place game is a great tool. It's a very you know there's probably different questions that could be in it, but it's a great starting point about like asking people how they might use the space, imagining what could be different. And then I like to challenge the Project for Public Spaces. They have a power of 10, which a challenge that every great place has 10 things to do. Um, I I like to think about the human senses. So don't just think about 10 things, think about 10 things for each of your senses. It's a great challenge. Like, what can you smell here? What are the 10 things you might smell? And then that gets you thinking about different flowers or baked goods or, yeah, if you just close your eyes and think of that. And I think it's also important to give people time on their own to think about these. A lot of these engagements and facilitations can be like very group oriented, but I think it's important to give people time to reflect on their own, even like 5 minutes, just like time to like close your eyes, think about what this place might be like at nighttime or in winter, different seasons. So just getting out of the typical like, we want a bench, we want a place. Benches are great. I love benches. I can go on a huge rabbit hole in benches, but yeah, I think having that conversation with people and understanding different perspectives, and then you can, once you're talking to them, you can get into conversations like about accessibility and how a bench might serve them better. Like this bench, for example, is the perfect height for you and I. It doesn't have armrests, so like if you have bad knees, it's not very easy to get up and down from. There's no backrest, so it's a bench designed for us to be here for like 15 minutes, perfect for an interview. You know what I mean? So there's like, how can something be more comfortable and inviting? And there's so many ways to unpack it, and I think having those conversations is really the most important thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and prototyping and testing and
Yeah.
maybe something that you had in your mind once you have it in front of you actually doesn't work in the end.
Yeah.
So it's always the process, right? And you just shared some really great tips and takeaways for any placemakers that are watching us now. And you mentioned earlier, so you were born and raised in Halifax.
Yes. Yeah.
So what makes Halifax a good place, would you say?
Oh my gosh. Um, I love Halifax. Just it's such a very dynamic place. There's like it's a first of all the history of the place, the storytelling of the indigenous people, like the connection to land, the fact that indigenous representation in the city hasn't really been present until like the last 5 to 7 years. There hasn't really been any like physical representation of indigenous people in the city, and that is changing very fast. Like I worked on the waterfront, and very thankful that during my time there I got to work on a few initiatives, and now there's like 2 shops that are indigenous led on the waterfront. There was about to be an art gallery, maybe soon, that very focused on indigenous principles. Uh, I get to work with the local friendship center on a new friendship center in the city. Very small role, but very thankful to be part of that. My brothers were actually indigenous, and they grew up in a city and didn't feel like they belonged too much. And anyway, so when they had a chance to move back to their community that they were born in, they were pretty quick to do it. So I always think that if Halifax was a bit more welcoming to them, then maybe they would have stayed a bit more. Maybe not, but so I'm very passionate about supporting and listening, and every chance I get to just share that story, and I think the city has a lot of potential to do better in that way. But also, it's a coastal city. It's about 500,000 people, but a very big municipality. But it's right on the ocean, big harbor. There's military, universities, big tourism town, very diverse economy. And it's a 20-minute drive to the beach. And it has pretty much everything you need, an international airport. Yeah, it's a magical place. And the people there are very nice. And I think, yeah, I moved from the city to Peggy's Cove, which is a community of 35 people, and I'm in the next community, which is like 250 people. And having the ability to work in a city and also be in a rural environment is pretty amazing. Like watching fishing boats every day. So yeah, it's interesting being an urban designer in a fishing village. But I think, yeah, everybody should come to Halifax for a lobster roll next Artist City building and check it out for themselves.
We got the invite.
Yes.
So,
And check
reel them in.
and check out the waterfront. I think most people know me as being connected to the Halifax hammocks. So if you want to put hammocks in your city, let me know, and I can send you a little guide on how to put them in your city. Yeah, yeah.
I love that you're the hammock guy.
Yeah.
That's a good place to be.
Yeah.
Well, TJ, thank you so much for this conversation and joining me here, and for also sharing more about your work and your story.
Should we chat about Snot and Jewel quickly?
Oh my gosh, I almost forgot. Yes.
Okay.
All right. So as a side note, before we sat down on the bench, I mentioned to TJ, I was like, didn't you have some type of didn't you share some type of test of like what makes a good public space, like what makes it stand out amongst the rest? And the answer was snot and drool. So definitely, thank you for bringing that up. Can you explain and elaborate a little bit further?
I'll do it fairly quickly. So, landing at Placemaking Week Amsterdam, which was the first one, the mayor passed away, like the day before the conference, so the whole city staff couldn't come. And the Mayor van der Laan, his sort of parting message to the citizens of Amsterdam was to be sweet and kind to each other and be sweet and kind to the city. And that message totally sort of changed the conversations from focusing on like livability to lovability. And it made me, I'm a photographer, and from that moment on, it shifted my photography from, sometimes taking pictures of things that I wanted to change or could be better, to just like try to focus on the things that bring you joy and bring other people joy. So I started taking photos on my trip to Budapest after that, of all the lovable things in Budapest. And first photo was my two friends who were dating at the time, and it was like them at a mural holding up a heart. And then picture of them on a bridge that was closed to cars and open to people, and they were just enjoying the day. And then we went up to a metro station, a brand new public metro station, which was kind of soulless, to be honest. Stark, very stark. But there was this interactive water fountain that had like randomized jets coming up of water, and there was this mother and a little like 2-year-old kid, and the 2-year-old girl was running to try to catch the random fountain jets, and she had so much snot and drool, and she was laughing so hard, and she was, I got a picture of her like literally levitating. She was so happy because of this like random fountain jet, and it clicked for me that how do we create more places where people can have this much joy in public space and be that comfortable. So I think that's an aspiration for me when I'm working on my projects. So yeah.
I think that's the perfect way to end this chat. So thank you so much for sharing. Thanks for listening. And until next time.
Perfect.
Ciao.
Thank you.